Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I am coming to you as always from the south of Germany, from Munich. Today is Saturday, it's the 8th of February 2020, and I'm just so happy that you're here today to talk about some knitting, some crochet, some spinning, and just all the yarny things in general. So if you're watching for the very first time, then a huge welcome to you. I really hope that you will enjoy this podcast. And if you are coming back, thank you so much for being a regular viewer of the podcast. So today is the last episode that I'll record before I go on a bit of a holiday break, which is exciting. We are leaving tomorrow. I have nothing packed, absolutely nothing. I thought I might have my yarn packed early and then I could show you what I'm planning to bring, but that didn't happen. But it will eventually, and trust me, I will bring quite a bit of yarn to cast on new things and it should be fun. But before all of that, I think today let's talk about some finished objects, some works in progress, some spinning, some crochet, who would have thought, and then I'll just chat a little bit at the end, and I hope that this episode will be fun for you. As per usual, I don't do show notes, but under every episode on YouTube, you will find a link to my project pages on Ravelry. And if you click that, you can find everything that I talk about in terms of projects, yarns, needle sizes, designers, all of that. You can find it right there. So that's the easiest place to find those things. I have been quite bad at replying to messages and moderating things in the group and on Instagram. I've just kind of had to reset my priorities, and unfortunately messages are one of the first things that go when I don't have enough time or mental space. But you should be able to find everything there, and I'm pretty sure you can sort my projects by whips. So if you're looking for the things that I'm talking about most recently, you will probably find that there as well. All right, so let's start with some finished objects, because you guys, I think for the first time since like the beginning to middle of January, I've actually finished something. Who would have thought? Did I remember to put it on sock blockers before filming? No. But these are my IKEA placemat sock blockers, which I just cut out with some kitchen scissors, by the way. But I have finished these socks, you guys. I am so happy to have finished something. It feels so good. Of course, I didn't bring any of like the yarn labels or anything, but this is Garnsur, which is / was a Norwegian yarn brand dyed by Norwegian refugees. Sorry, by refugee women in Norway, I should say. It's the merino sock base. I got this at the Oslo Knitting Festival last year. And this was one of the two projects that I started when I completely lost my knitting mojo a couple of weeks back. And yeah, they definitely helped. This was a really fun pair of socks to knit. It's a very simple, plain stockinette sock. So I did 2x2 ribbing for 20 rows. Then a relatively long stockinette leg with a fish lips cassille. And yeah, they are pretty basic socks, 64 stitches, 2.25 millimeter needles, which is my usual go-to method for knitting socks. I knit them cuff down, and yeah, they will go straight into my sock drawer, which I'm really, really excited about. I may even take them on the flight tomorrow, because yes, even though we are going somewhere very, very warm and summery, I mean, on the plane, I'm definitely wearing some hand knit socks. So who knows? Anyways, they're done. I have 2 of them. Really happy to have finished them. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about these. I just really love the colors. It's just such a fun colorway, and I like how they didn't really pull. They just have relatively regular patterning all over the socks. And yeah, they're done. So that is my finished object for this week. And you guys, I almost had a second one. I mean, if I had decided to film tomorrow, I would have a second one, but I decided to film today. The other pair of socks that I cast on when I lost my mojo were these socks. And this is the yarn that I have left over. And for this, I do have the ball band. This is Opal Freche Freunde, which is one of their newer lines, I believe. And the colorway is number 9762, which is called Schaumschläger. Please don't ask me to translate. I have no idea how to translate that. Anyways, it's a really fun German sock yarn, which I got very cheaply at a local Christmas market. And I have, again, finished the first sock. Here it is. And I have just started the toe decreases on the second one. So this one should also be done before we go on holiday, which is fantastic. That only leaves me with one sock whip, which I still can't bear the look of, so that's just gonna exist until at some point I maybe pick it up again or find someone who will adopt it and finish it for me. But yeah, so I feel like I almost have 2 pairs of socks done, which makes me very happy. As you can see, these are totally non-matchy. I did that on purpose, so what I did is when I finished the first sock, I was at this orange point, which is kind of similar to where I started my first sock. So then I just wound off a little bit of yarn, so they are, quite far apart in their patterning, which I think is better than if they kind of match but don't quite. So yeah, these are pretty much done as well. Again, simple vanilla socks, 2x2 rib, cuff down. And for these, I did the Fish Lips Kiss heel in garter stitch, which I do quite often, and you can do that with any of the short row heels. You essentially just knit the purl stitches, and then there's 2 types of like short row stitches, I guess, in the Fish Lips Kiss heel, and only one makes sense if you do the garter stitch, but it's very obvious, and you should be able to figure that out. Yeah, so that is that. Hopefully done very soon, and I just think these colors are so fun. I mean, they're very colorful, they look very neon on screen, but they're just such fun socks, and I love this German sock yarn. It's just very affordable when you buy it here, and it holds up really well. You can just throw these in the washing machine and they'll probably last me for like the next 10 years. So yeah, I feel like my knitting mojo is coming back. I mean, I'm not sure if you can tell, but I'm definitely knitting more again, and it's feeling pretty good. I'm still kind of careful. I don't want to like put in too much energy and then lose it again. So I'm carefully enjoying my knitting mojo, but I'm starting to think more about like knitting things and enjoying seeing knitted things on Instagram and all of that. So I think everything is coming back. So yeah, these I guess could be my colorful holiday socks, who knows? But those are the 2 projects that I've been knitting on. But you will never guess what comes next. I am not a crocheter. I will say that very, very openly. Like years and years ago, I did a couple of hats, like top-down hats, or were they like from, I don't even remember. Anyways, I did a couple of hats, which seem to be a very big trend in Germany, at least, to knit to crochet, like those my boshi hats. And I did that before I started knitting. I kind of got bored after 2 or 3 hats, and I don't know, I've just never really been a crocheter. The only exception are my granny stripe and granny square blankets, which I finished one and I'm working on another one at the moment, and those are just like scrappy projects. They're really fun. I'm sure you've seen them around if you've been following the Yarny community, because they're kind of everywhere. But I was kind of running out on knitting steam, and I just wanted to do something different. And I have like 4 blankets on the go. But I really felt like doing another blanket, and I really felt or have been feeling like doing a blanket that is not scrappy. So I did the craziest thing, you guys. I ordered some cotton. Because I wanted like a color coordinating blanket, and while I have a ton of yarn in stash, crochet uses a lot of like yardage, and like even like a sweater quantity or whatever wouldn't have really worked, and I wanted something colorful. So what I did is I ordered some yarn on sale. This is crochet cotton. Sorry for the crinkling. These are kind of the colors that I picked. So I got 2 sets on sale. I am not sponsored by this company, by the way, but this is from Hobby, which I think only popped up kind of recently. It's a very affordable yarn brand. They do have a lot of crochet stuff. They have a lot of acrylic, which I'm not that interested in. And they also have some wool yarn, which seems quite nice. I have some in my stash, but I haven't used it very much. Anyways, they have these big sales all the time, and I just picked up two different color sets of this cotton. This is called Rainbow 8/4 100% natural cotton. And then I just mixed those sets and took out some colors. So the first set came with like these green tones and a lot of neutrals, like mainly grays and also a couple of browns, which I just put in a separate bag for now because I don't want to use it for that. And then the other set I got were more like minty and blue tones. And so I'm crocheting a blanket. Who would have thought? I'm pretty sure this is about a sport weight cotton, I guess. It's 170 meters per 50 grams. I also got myself a crochet hook because I figured the ones that I'm using for my scrap blankets, which are a 4mm needle, they're kind of too big and I don't like crocheting super loosely. So I got myself this on sale as well. I think it's a Knit Picks crochet hook. It's a 3mm needle. Again, I have no idea about crochet, so I just went with relatively inexpensive materials. And you guys, I learned a new technique. So I should say I have no idea about crochet. I can't read any of like crochet patterns. I kind of know like single crochet and double crochet, but that's pretty much it. But I've been wanting to do a corner to corner crochet blanket for a long time, which is also called C2C every now and then. And I think there are different types out there, so I just went on Ravelry and checked out free instructions. And I came across this. And this is called the C2C Moss Stitch Blanket, which is by Polly Plum, I believe. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and essentially it just gives you a link, and that link has both written instructions and it also has a video. So again, I never follow video tutorials, but for this I just clicked on the video, which is about like 30 minutes, but she spends a lot of time talking about the blanket before she actually gets to it. And then I just followed the video instructions and I learned how to do this crochet moss stitch. I think it's also called crochet linen stitch. And how fun is it? So this has been a completely new thing for me. It's a new technique, and I don't know why crochet always seems a bit like magic to me. Like I just get knitting. I get how stitches are formed. I get the logic behind knitting, and I don't necessarily get that with crochet. But having said that, this has been so much fun. I think I started it on Thursday night and today is Saturday and here we are. I am noticing that the light is going kind of funny because I'm recording relatively late in the day, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so what I did is I just started out, and in the beginning I think like the angle doesn't look quite right, but I'm doing everything correctly. I think I was just pulling it too tight, so it looks kind of like the angle isn't quite right, but then again it is kind of stretchy, so I think it'll block out a little bit, and if not, I mean, it's a blanket, who cares. But ever since realizing that, I have been crocheting much looser, especially on the sides, and I think it will become somewhat rectangular at some point. So right now I'm obviously just increasing, and then at some point I'll just decrease again, unless I decide to make it rectangular, in which case there is another step to it, but I think that should be relatively simple. So yeah, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm just doing 7 rows of each color and then changing colors. And I found a way to crochet the ends pretty much into the blanket. It's not super seamless, but it's okay. And that means that I don't have to weave in any ends, which I think with crochet, they just really bother me. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I wasn't sure how I was going to like the cotton, but I must say this is a really nice cotton. Like, I hate the cotton that feels very stiff and straw-like, and I think I've only ever used bad cotton in my life, but this stuff is actually nice, and like it creates a nice fabric. It's very different, of course, to the woolen yarn that I use all the time. So I wouldn't knit with cotton. I hate knitting with cotton and linen and all of those things. They just hurt my hands. But with crochet, it actually works quite well. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. I have kind of divvied up my yarn. So I have almost equal amounts of neutral colors versus like those blue and green colors. I think this is the most green one that's going to be in there. It's mostly going to be blue and like mint and turquoise. So I'm just doing like a neutral stripe and then a colorful stripe and another neutral stripe. And besides that, I'm not really managing my colors. I'm just having fun with it. And I think it's going to be a blanket anyways. So who really cares? I have no idea how big I'm going to make it. I'm just enjoying the process right now. I will say with at least from my personal experience, relatively small needle and the linen stitch, it doesn't go super, super fast. But I figured it would go faster than knitting a blanket, and yeah, it's been quite fun. I'm trying to think what else to tell you about this, but since I have no idea about crochet, I really don't know. But I'm hoping it'll maybe get some of you guys excited, because I know that there are some crocheters out there and you have been very much neglected in this podcast so far. So yeah, that is my C2C moss stitch blanket. And obviously I'm not taking this on holiday with me, because I mean, taking this amount of yarn with me would be kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I just bought a lot of yarn, to be honest. I have no idea how much I need. I just know that crochet tends to eat a lot of yarn, much more than knitting does. So I thought I'd just get those packs, and with the leftovers I can always do something else. Or I could give them to my sister. My voice is going. Because my sister is really good at crochet. Like, she can make little toys and things, and I don't know how she does it. She's very talented at these sort of things. Like, she makes toys and little puppets and all of that without even using patterns. So this cotton will get used. Or I could, of course, I could do some more washcloths, because I do have some washcloths that my friend Marion gave to me, I think 2 Christmases ago, and I use them all the time. Like at night, I keep wanting to show them to you guys and I always forget. But I have like basically just like a block of soap for my face, and then I use these crochet cotton washcloths, and they're just so nice on my face. And you can just throw them in the washing machine like a million times. So I could of course also do that, especially because these colors definitely suit my our bathroom. Like, we have a rug in our bathroom which is kind of a little bit more blue than this, but it would go really nicely. So yeah, I will have some use for this cotton if I don't use it all, and if I do, then it doesn't matter either. So yeah, that was a little tangent into crochet. And like I said, I'm just going to be picking it up again once I return from our holiday. So this is going to be a somewhat long-term project, I believe. But what's one more blanket? I mean, who is counting? I'm not. Yeah, so before we get into spinning, I'm realizing I never told you what I'm wearing. This is one of my most worn sweaters. I feel like I have a lot of most worn sweaters, but this is the Threepmere sweater by Isolde Teague. This was the first sweater I ever knit out of Jamieson and Smith 2-ply jumper weight. And I remember getting this yarn about almost 2 years ago, a little bit less than 2 years ago, and I think it was one of my, not my first colorwork sweaters, but it was in the beginning of my colorwork sweater career. And yeah, I wear the sweater a lot, and I kind of tried to depeel it yesterday. It's, of course, with the microphone, it's scrunched up a little bit. I tried to depeel it yesterday. It is becoming a bit worn. You can definitely see it. It probably needs a reblock as well around the neckline. Like, it's not a perfect sweater, but I just really enjoy wearing it, and I knit this on a relatively loose gauge. So theoretically, it's supposed to be a fingering weight yarn, even though I never get it to a fingering weight gauge anyways. But I remember using relatively large needles, and I'm a loose knitter, so it just creates a really, really light garment. I remember being really, really astounded, because I just didn't use that much yarn when knitting it as well. And yeah, so I wear this a lot. It's one of those garments that it keeps me warm, but it doesn't make you overheat, which I really enjoy. I also still really enjoy these colors. Like, it's kind of neutral with a bit of yellow, but it's not super crazy. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing today. I have a feeling it's not gonna last me forever, basically mostly because I chose the gauge that I did. But yeah, it deserved a spot on the podcast, I thought. All right, so for spinning, I finished 2 skeins of yarn. So you may remember I've been talking about this sweater spin that I'm doing, and I've been doing that since, I think, December. But I have 400 grams of fiber, which is a German merino fiber, so it's sourced relatively close to Munich. And yeah, I have been spinning the first half up, so I spun the first 200 grams of yarn, or the first 200 grams of singles, I should say, and then I 2-plied them, and I have 2 skeins of yarn. So this is a fingering to sport weight yarn. It's definitely more on a sport weight in terms of the yardage that I got, or the meterage, but it feels very thin. And I spun this kind of worsted, but I didn't flatten the fibers very much, and the prep was kind of like a woolen to worsted. I would say it's a semi-worsted spin. I'm making this very technical and I'm probably getting it wrong, but there's fibers sticking out pretty much in every direction, and it just made for a very lofty yarn. This fiber would have been great for spinning woolen as well, but I just couldn't bear spinning so much woolen yarn and keeping it consistent, especially because I'm not spinning like huge chunks at a time. So yeah, I went with this technique, and I think it turned out really nice. It kind of actually reminds me of, like, I don't know, like it's not a woolen spun yarn per se, but it kind of has some of the characteristics. It's very light, it's very lofty, and I think it's going to make an amazing sweater one day. So the first 2 skeins are done. They're just kind of different weights because I had 100 grams of singles on 2 bobbins, and then I spun it onto a third bobbin, and then I just decided to stop at some point when I thought I had plied half of it, and of course I didn't. So I think this one is about 75 grams. This one is about 125 grams, but it doesn't matter because it's all going to be the same sweater in the end. So these are done. I can try to give you a bit of a close-up. I really like the different marbled colors in this. So it's a very sort of subtle color difference in them, but there are some lighter bits and darker bits, and it has a bit of a halo, and I think it just turned out pretty well. So I spun this on my Ashford eSpinner 3. I'm still undecided about it. I'm kind of undecided about my spinning setup at the moment, and I'm not sure if I'm just not that happy with it because I'm not spinning much, or if I'm not spinning much because I'm not really enjoying my wheel. I really need to reevaluate at some point whether I want to keep the e-spinner, whether I do want to get myself a different wheel. I have been desperately wanting to get a flat iron wheel, I will say. I've had it in my cart a few times, but I'm just not in the right place to buy it right now. So for now, I'm just kind of spinning along on my e-spinner, and I need to evaluate at some point what I want to do with my spinning going forward. But I have no rush, really. I mean, I can always sell my wheel, I can always get another wheel, and yeah, I'm just not rushing anything, especially in the crafty mood that I'm in right now, which is very much undecided anyways. Anyways, so that's been my spinning, and that's pretty much it for the knitting content of this show. So again, I feel like the lighting this week is just kind of very yellow, and there's just nothing I can do about it. I'm working with natural light, which is great, but sometimes it just changes a little bit and makes me look like a peach, but we'll deal with that somehow. In terms of what I've got planned, like I said, we're going away tomorrow night. We've already checked in. All I need to do really is just sit down and pack, which I really need to do soon. But we are only leaving tomorrow night, so it's not a big rush. Like I said, I haven't packed any of the knitting that I'm going to take, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to take any of my works in progress because I'll have those socks finished by then. And in terms of what works in progress I actually have, I have 2 half-finished sweaters, which I'm definitely not carrying around with me. I have 2 very large shawl projects, which again, I don't want to carry with me. And I have 1 second sock that I'm working on, but yeah, no, that's not happening. So what I think I'll do is I will definitely pack a lot of sock yarn, because socks are always fun. I am planning to take socks on wooden needles on the plane, which should be fine. And if not, I mean, they can take away my needles. If I even start them before we get to the airport, I'll only knit a little bit, so I can just pull out the needles if they try to take anything away from me. But with wooden needles, nothing has ever happened to me. I know some people take metal needles and they're fine, but for me, it's just not worth the pressure and not knowing what's going to happen. And I don't really know how German authorities work with airports and needles and all of that. I think they're a little bit more strict than the US ones, but I might be wrong. I have no idea. Anyways, all I'm trying to say is I'm going to be taking a lot of socks. I'm also thinking about taking some lace weight yarn, because I kind of feel like knitting a lace shawl. And you can say, Julia, you already have 2 shawls on the needles and you never work on them. And yes, it could be a very big disaster, but I just can't stop thinking about a lace shawl. And I have some lace yarn from Das Mondschaf, which is like, I think, a merino and yak mix. And that would be nice to take. And the advantage of taking like thin yarn is you don't need to take such a big quantity. I will most likely also take at least 1 sweater quantity of yarn, but again, probably a very lightweight yarn. So a fingering to a lace weight yarn, so I can just cast on a sweater and not carry around like a massive amount of yarn. Or should I say have Kai carry around a massive amount of yarn. Anyways, those are my plans. I really need to wrap my head around that, but I think I'm just going to take something that gives me a lot of variety and then take a couple of needles, and then I can still decide whether I want to knit socks, whether I want to knit something else out of a sock weight yarn. There are just many possibilities. I actually thought when I was planning my crochet blanket, it would have been really good to make one where you have like single parts, so like a log, not a log cabin, what's it called? Like little granny squares or hexagon squares, like the hexagon squares. That doesn't make sense. They're called hexagons, Julia. So that would have been really good, because I would have been able to just take small parts of a blanket with me and then just seam them up later. But the seam them up later part is what made me change my mind, and I just really wanted to try corner to corner. So no crochet coming with me on this trip, but that'll be fine. So yeah, that's pretty much what we have planned. Of course, if you kind of want to follow along what we're doing, the best place to do so is on Instagram, where you can find me as The Happy Knitting Podcast. I haven't been posting very much because, again, I've just been kind of stressed out and needed a bit of space. But if I do post anything, it will be over there. And so if you do want to follow me there, of course you can, but you're not missing anything. You don't have to. If you don't have Instagram, it's totally up to you. I'm just letting you know that's where I'll be mostly. And of course, I will check into the Ravelry group every now and then. All right, so I will see you again in either 2 or 3 weeks, just depending on how jet lagged I am when we get back. And until then, I hope you have a great time. Have so much fun with your knitting, crocheting, spinning, crafting. Thanks for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye!